Hello and welcome to Chapter 1 of The Size Principles. Today we'll be talking about splits and exercises. First, let's start off with splits. So in the first point, when it comes to splits, the dirty secret about a lot of this has to deal with all of these splits work. Whenever you're trying to go to the gym, all of these work, no matter what. It more so just depends on how many days of the week you can go to the gym consistently. That's all that really matters. And even then you can fudge your program in order to make some of these fit into something that you want to do. So basically, it's really not the question of what split works for me. It is more of a question of, it's more about how many days of the week can you go to the gym, because that is actually more important than the actual split, because then you can figure out your split from how many days you can go. So for example, when I started going to the gym, I started going 3 days a week, full body split, but I recently changed that to an upper lower because I could go 4 days a week. But I had the opportunity to change that. There are some people that can go 6 days a week. There are some people who can only go 2 days a week. It all truly depends on how advanced you are, if you can get to a gym, if you have a gym at home. There's a lot of key variables and factors. You have to just ask yourself whether or not, how many times you're willing to go to the gym and or can make it to the gym. There are some people who can only go 3 days a week. There are some people who can, for some reason, go 6 days a week. There are some people who work out all 7 days. There are some people who can only work out 1 day a week. At the extremes, 1 and 7, it's a little different, but we'll get to that in the next point. So like I was saying before, it really just depends on how many days a week you can do, and then you can fit whatever split you want in between there. If you're a beginner or intermediate, anywhere from 2 to 6 is good. Anywhere in between there. It all just depends on life circumstances and stuff like that. 7, I would say, is for advanced people. If you really truly know what you're doing. Why are you even watching this video? I thank you for the view, but these people already know what they're doing. If you are at 1 day, not necessarily enough to grow, but it is enough to maintain. You just have to make sure that you hit everything on that 1 day and you can maintain stuff. If I remember correctly, it is, you just need 2 working sets per body part in order to maintain the level of size that you have. So it's not much. You don't need to do much in order to maintain. So this is something like you only need to go 1 day a week because, I don't know, you just had a baby or life circumstances, crazy stuff is happening. You can only go to the gym for 1 day a week. That's what that is. If you are starting off and you're only going 1 day, bump it to 2 at least. And then from there you can get better at it. So I would say once you start going towards a higher end range of days that you can go, you're going to have to change it up a little bit. So for example, if you do 2 to 3 days, you can do a full body split here. So that is feasible. I would say best for 3 days, you can go push pull legs and or full body as well. For 4 days, you can do upper lower. So upper lower, or upper lower, rest, upper lower. That's how I do it personally. Or you can do what I used to do and do 3 full body days. And so I do 1 full body day rest, 1 full body day rest, 1 full body day rest, and then a arm day, which was an at-home arm day. So that was 4 days technically. For a 5-day split, you can do a bro split, so body part specific split if you would like. I personally don't recommend it, but people like it. I'm not going to trash on that because at the beginning of it, anything works really. Unless you're starting to get super advanced where you have to really think about these things, a lot of this stuff works. I wouldn't recommend it, but then again, some people like that. So there's the bro split, which you can do. Then you can also do push-pull legs upper lower for a 5-day split as well. So, or you can do a modification of an upper lower. So upper lower, upper lower, upper. So you could have an extra upper day on a 5-day split. That is possible. Depends on your goals and stuff. It really does boil down to it depends on how many days of the week can you dedicate to the gym and what body parts are you trying to grow whilst going to the gym, because that does play into a factor with recovery and stuff. So then for the 6-day-a-week split, you can do push-pull legs, doubling, or upper lower, upper lower, upper lower. Full body 6 days a week would be tough. You could, in theory, do full body anywhere like this, but you have to really think about the recovery of doing a full body almost every day or full body every day. You have to tweak and manage the workout load in order to be in your favor. So for example, if you were to do like full body, let's say 5 days a week or something like that, you have to make sure that you like skew it towards specific body parts each day. So then that way you're not overloading one part of your body too much. So for example, like let's say Monday is skewed towards chest, and then Tuesday is skewed towards quads, and then Wednesday say it's skewed towards arms, you know what I mean? But you still get some work via compounds or isolations with body parts that you've already hit, for example. It's not as heavy, or you do alternative days where it's a lighter day, for example. So you do like, let's say you do bench on Monday, a heavy bench on Monday, then on Wednesday you do a lighter variation of the bench for full body. You know, you can do something like that. It all just truly depends on how many days you go. If you're doing 7 days a week, if you're doing 7 days a week and you're a novice, what are you doing? Like, don't do that. I can tell you right now that you're taking too much time up by going that much. It will be fine for a little bit. It's just not sustainable. One of those things that you're going balls to the wall really quickly, and you need to not do that at the beginning. You really need to go down at the end range and then work your way up to that. That's something that you don't even need to go that much. Like, you could go 2 days a week and still be getting the same results as 7 days a week. So don't overdo it. The 7 is something where you're advanced enough to know a lot about your own body. You've been doing it for like 6 to 10 years, so you already know all this stuff. So don't do that. As somebody who tries to do as much working out as they can, I learned multiple times the hard way, pushing my body too much, like 7 days a week, not useful, not working out, and honestly just hurts after a while. So don't do that. Any split works within a set amount of days. You just have to finagle it in order for them to work for you. That's all that really matters. You don't want to overload with too many exercises to do, which we will get to in the next point. As long as you're consistent with how many days of the week you can go, then the split doesn't necessarily matter. Once you become more in the intermediate stage, it slightly matters more, but by then you should already know what your body is like. So that way you can auto-regulate some splits, as well as you never know what life is going to throw at you. So you don't know how many days of the week you can go. So there are things like that. It's good to know what each split is and the pros and cons of each, which there are multiple videos about, but just make it so it fits what you can do, you know? And then we'll talk about exercises next. When it comes to exercises, I think the biggest thing that I could say to you, rather than sitting here and giving you a list of all exercises that I can name off the top of my head, I think number one has to be that the exercise must be fun for you. It doesn't matter if the iliac pull down causes the biggest muscle growth for you. If it's not fun to do, then what the hell's the point? And now what's fun for you is whatever you find fun. If it is, to quote Eric Bugenhagen, if you like horse cocking some weight around, then there you go. That's what you find fun. If you find going low and slow on a V-bar tricep push down is fun, like I do, then that's great for you. That's your thing. Whatever you do, as long as it's fun, do not forget the fun part. A lot of the people forget the fun part about the gym. You want to enjoy what you do. Now, does that mean that there are some movements that suck that you should probably do? Yeah. And does that mean that there are some movements that are not going to be as fun as other movements? Of course, that's just the nature of the game. But you want to try and figure out what you like to do and what is fun and enjoyable and what you would think you would want to be doing for the next, 2 to 3 years before you have to really change it up. And we'll get to exercise variation on a different day. But for now, that's like the number one thing. Now, if it's good for muscle growth or if it's good for targeting the muscle that it is meant to target, that's a whole different discussion. That is specific to the exercises themselves, as well as the muscle groups that they hit, plus form, plus what you're using. So for example, the difference between a machine chest press and a bench press or a dumbbell bench, all three technically hit the same things, but in slightly different ways. So it all just depends. This leads me to step 2, which is must be able to do. So for example, if your gym for some reason doesn't have barbells, don't try to just do a barbell bench press with nothing. You know what I mean? Like you have to have access to whatever you want to do. Make sure that you're able to do it. There's nothing worse than going to a gym and then being like, man, I'm going to try out their pullover machine, to realize they don't have pullover machines or something like that, where you go and then you realize they don't have a thing that you've been studying upon the entire time. It's stuff like that. Or you're at home and you want to do something that you don't have equipment for, and you have to buy like a $300 equipment for. More likely than not, you can find an alternative for it. So as long as you're able to do the exercise, that's part of another thing that matters as well. A third point is that you don't have to do the big 3. I think this is something that most people don't realize. The big 3 are squat, bench, deadlift. You don't have to do these things. They're recommended for most people to do them. You'll get a lot of growth from these things, but they aren't necessarily the best for size. And also, there is a certain level of dogma that you can fall into by following just the big three, and they don't hit everything. They even though they hit a lot, they don't hit everything. So just be careful about that. It is something I would recommend most people do, at least get proficient in them, and then you can move on a little bit, but you don't have to even get proficient in them because there are other movements that are better. They might be better for you hypertrophy wise, but as well as leverages wise. So for example, you might just have shitty leverage for your, you might be able to deadlift a crap ton, but your bench sucks. So that just takes some of the fun out of one of the big three, although you could love benching or whatever. It just depends on you really, but I would say try them, do them for a little bit, but don't be tied to them because a lot of people end up tying themselves to them. So you got to get rid of that dogma completely because like I said, they're good, but they aren't the best for size. It all just depends, obviously, but they're good to do, but you don't have to do those three. There's actually what I would consider the big five. I include overhead press and pull-ups to the big three, so it'd be the big five for me. Those two are staples. They should be added to most people's workouts, but they're not necessary per se. Just like I'm not attached to them because I can get rid of them if I need to, but I think they're great. So that's my personal opinion on them, but I'm not married to any one exercise. Do not marry yourself to an exercise. That's the thing. And then the fourth is as long as it's a mixture of compounds and isolation work. So you want to combine the two and you want to treat them all equally. The only thing that is treated not equally between compounds and isolation is the order in which you do them. So for example, you always start the workout with compounds first, just because they're the most taxing. So you want to be the freshest that you can be, and then you do isolations afterwards because they are something where you can control a little bit more of the variables that go into them. So for example, you can push your biceps a little bit more later in the workout than at the beginning where you want them the freshest for chin-ups or something like that. You just want to be careful about stuff like that because if you do isolations first to do something like to fatigue the muscle a little bit so they're not as active during compounds, I understand why people do that, but it's not a smart idea for most people because you don't necessarily need to fatigue the muscle. Kind of makes less sense if you really think about it. Start with compounds and then work your way down. You want to be the freshest that you can be on compounds. Failing at bench press, failing at a squat, and failing at a deadlift. All three can be very scary situations and you do not want to make yourself tired via isolations before you go into compounds to do those types of things. You want to be the freshest you can be. So that's what I got to say about exercises. If you want a specific list of exercises to do, just experiment. Go out there and mess around a little bit. You don't have to be married to any one exercise. Just figure out which exercises you want and then slot them into whatever program fits your schedule. Here we go. I'll give you examples of what this looks like. All right, so for this first day, what I used to do for full body was every Monday was bench, squat, RDL, pull-ups, leg raises, calves, forearm work, pec deck, and machine rows. All of those in one day. That took me forever to do because I had to warm up on these three and then everything else just took a while. And I did do supersets, which will be its own episode. We'll talk about that later. But while doing these, it took me forever to do them. For me personally, what was better is adding another day to go to the gym, but then making those days slightly shorter because the full body, although great, I was cooked after these days. It was tiring. I hit a lot of my body and I didn't hit all that I wanted to even then. So that is something that is an example of full body. So for example, on this full body, it was chest heavy and quad heavy. And then there was an accessory for the hamstrings. There was back work, ab work with the leg raises, calf work, which not enough people do, and we'll get to body parts because that'll be a whole chapter on its own. Muscles, because there are forgotten muscles a lot of the time that people forget. Forearms, forgotten muscle. The pec deck to add an accessory to the bench, and then machine rows to do more back work, all in one day. So I only hit my chest twice, and then I hit my back twice, and then I got the small muscles in there, and then hit the front of my legs with the main mover, which is the squat, and then I hit it with the back side of my legs with a, not necessarily my main mover, but it can be your main mover, an RDL. Very good. would recommend it. At the time, I was doing the big three, so I would do deadlifts on my Friday. So the deadlift was helping the RDL. Although I wouldn't recommend doing squats and deadlifts on the same day. That is not a good idea for a multitude of reasons. You basically want to pick something heavy on one end and then something lighter on the back end. You know what I mean? Like, so do your heavy squat and then a variation for your hamstrings, and then on the other day do a lighter squat variation while a heavy work for your hamstring. So there you go, just to keep that separate if you're doing a full body day. Now my upper one, it looks like a crap ton, and it kind of is, but the thing is, I got rid of bench. Squat, RDL, and calves and forearms are all thrown on a lower body day. Now you may be wondering, forearms on a lower body day, why do you do that? Because I control my program. The program doesn't control me, so I get to tell it when I want to do other muscle groups like that don't affect any lower body parts. So always think about that. You can squeeze in work on lower body days or on push-pull leg days or any other type of day that doesn't necessarily affect anything else. So forearms, your neck, your calves, because nobody likes to do calves ever. So there you go. The main thing is, as long as you stick to something every time, that's all that really matters. But for upper day one, I do dips, skull crushers, low row, lat pull down, pullovers, neck extension, spider curls, shrugs, and lateral raises. This is a lot of stuff. A lot of it is supersetted. But like I said, we'll get to that episode later. But I hit my chest directly once. My back is hit 1, 2, 3 times in 3 different ways, and it's a lot. I would not recommend it for most people, but I want to grow my back. That is the main thing I've been trying to do for this year. This is the year of the back, so I'm going crazy on that. Then try a long head of the tricep work using the skull crusher, the neck extension to work the neck, one of the forgotten muscles, spider curls because I want the biceps, and then shrugs because you can always work on traps no matter what. You can put traps anywhere, it doesn't matter. You're not going to fatigue it too much. Even if you do something like deadlifts, you can do shrugs later in the workout. It doesn't necessarily even matter. Your traps are pretty resilient, so you can always work them. And then lateral raises because I want bigger shoulders. So there you go. That's how I do those. And a pro tip that I've learned from, you do upper lower days. Your upper days should look like a laundry list. Your lower days should look like a post-it note. All right. So your lower days are going to look small. You're going to not do much, but you don't necessarily even need that much, especially if you're new to the gym. You only need like 3 or 4 exercises and you're done. That's it. I would recommend that you, like I said, just start by looking at the days of the week that you have open and you can dedicate to going. And it's the dedication of, no matter what, I'm going to go to the gym on X, Y, and Z, and how many of those days you can do. Even if it's at home, if you only have like a set of dumbbells and you're like, all right, I can do this every day from 3 to 4 p.m. I can do this for 5 days a week. As long as you're consistent with that, then the other pieces can start falling in. But you have to make sure that you figure out what days of the week you can go consistently. And then from there, we'll start figuring out, all right, what is the basis of the program, aka what is the split that we're going to do. And then from there, you figure out the exercises. Like, for example, that's just situationally based and what you find fun. All right, so you figured out how many days you can dedicate to the gym. And now you're like, okay, I can dedicate maybe 3 days a week. I can do full body. How do I divide it? I've gone to the gym and experimented a little with a couple exercises. How do I divide it into a sensible way so that way I don't hurt myself and all this other stuff? So next time we're going to be talking about the body parts. So just body parts in general. So then that way we can discuss what can get hit more often than not. And it all just depends, obviously. All muscles are very different. Some share similar crossovers, but we'll get to that. Next part will be about body parts and the amount of frequency you can do, which is the first step in the major equation that you need to learn in order to figure out the rest, the blueprint of your program. There you go. Once you understand body parts and the frequency that is needed to make sure that there is growth for each body part, from there you can start figuring out slowly the other 2 steps, which is the volume and the intensity that goes together to create the entire program. But next time we're going to talk about body parts and we're going to talk about frequency because they kind of go hand in hand together. So thank you for watching. I appreciate it. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.